Hello and welcome to another episode of On Second Thought. There are a lot of things in human society that everybody accepts as toxic. War, violence, corruption, global warming. Everybody knows it's bad, but somehow these things thrive. What about plastics? Human society has reached a situation where everybody accepts that plastic is bad. There is no doubt of that. But still, plastic products flood the market everywhere in some way or another. Why is that? Maybe we are not trying hard, trying enough. But to be fair, there has been a lot of discussions, lot of debates, lot of attempts to control the plastics production, but in vain. The latest is the Global Plastics Treaty. It's a third round of discussions that finished last month in Nairobi. It also bought. Nothing really happened. We have with us Swathi Seshadri from Center for Financial Accountability, who has been witness to the discussions and she was participating there as an observer. Welcome, Swathi. The many news which I read about this global talks was that inertia versus enthusiasm. So what went wrong there for the third time? It was the third round of talks.
Thanks, Jimmy. So, like you said, this is the third round of talks. The first one, of course, was just setting the context. And things didn't go well in the second round, neither did it go well in the third round. I think just to say that the big takeaways, or what did it end with? We ended with two levels of failure. One is that going into the third round of negotiations, we had a 36-page zero draft, which was supposed to be negotiated. But what we come away with is possibly 100 odd pages of another round of zero draft, because member states, instead of zeroing on the various options and narrowing down on the options that were presented in the zero draft, ended up adding new text and new options, thereby bloating the zero draft. So instead of narrowing down, they've actually further expanded it, making it more difficult for negotiations in the next round. The second level of failure was that intersessional periods between negotiations are very important, because this is when member states have the opportunity to go deep dive into certain areas, on which are tricky or which they need further consensus on. And they usually have to also agree on what the topics for the intersessional work would be. Now, they could not agree on, there was no consensus on the intersessional work that could be taken between INC 3 and 4. So we now have 4 to 5 months of time. It's really wasted, because that deep dive, the deeper understanding that the membership needs to be able to take those decisions and negotiations, now they will not be able to do that. So these were two levels of failures that we see in this INC 3.
Okay, fine. I want to know what went wrong. Who caused that treaty not to be signed?
So I think the industry, the lobbies, and the industry players, especially the big oil companies, they are becoming more and more alert to this global plastics treaty. When we were in the first round of negotiations in Uruguay, we did see that the big oil companies were present. But we are seeing more and more of those in the subsequent, intergovernmental negotiating committee meetings. And this year, this INC 3 saw a 36% increase of lobbyists who were registered as observers in this INC 3. So, just to say that the Center for International Environmental Law, a US based organization, has done an analysis of all the registered participants, who had come for the INC, which includes member states and observers. And just to say that CSOs, corporate lobbyists, everyone who's not a member state is also an observer, unless they're media. But anyone who's not government but is an organization of this nature would be considered an observer. And when the INC Secretariat gives out a provisional list of attendants, or those who've registered for the INC, and as per that we have to declare our affiliation. What organization are we affiliated?
And now, from that, it was clear that the lobbyists were coming in.
There were about 143 lobbyists registered as observers, and they were registered. And there was a 36% increase between INC 2 and INC 3 is what CL's analysis gives. And the other point in this is that we noticed that some lobbyists had this red badge, had a red band on their badge. Now, as an observer, we have an orange band on our badge. If you have a red band on your badge, it means that you are a member state delegate. You're a delegate who's part of a government representative. And we saw that some lobbyists had those red banded cards. So not only were they registered in the, not only were they there in the INC, but some of them were even in, as part of government negotiation, part of government delegation.
They came as government representatives who
Not
had
all of them.
influence in the talks, and if they want, they can scuttle the entire discussion or take the discussion
Yes.
in a different path.
Because they would have
the discussion in a different path, isn't it?
That's right. So just to say why it's important to be a delegate, if you are a member part of a delegate of a government delegation, then the difference is this, that you have regional meetings that happen every day. Each of the regional groups there are you and regional groups. Now these groups meet every day. Often these are closed door meetings, especially the Asia Pacific group is always a closed door meeting. They have never opened doors to observers, so that we're able to observe their conversations and be able to contribute. Now, when you're a delegate of a government, of a member state, then automatically you get entry into those kind of closed door spaces, which as an observer you don't get, and are able to directly influence the outcome of their.
I got it. But for the viewers also, I have a different question. You were saying that the big corporates, the people who are in the petroleum business are interested in a plastic treaty talks. Can you enlighten the readers or viewers the connection between plastics and the oil companies?
Yeah, often when we ask people where do plastics come, they usually have no answer, or at best they say it comes from a factory. What many people don't know is that plastics are fossil fuels. In India, for example, plastics are made from oil, but across the world, plastics are made from oil, gas, or coal. So basically, any fossil fuel is refined. If we take the Indian context, mostly oil, very small percentage gas. Oil is refined into something called naphtha, which becomes the feedstock for producing polymers, first monomers and then polymers. And from polymers, we find that plastics are made. So therefore, there is a very direct connect between the oil industry and plastic industry. Just to give you one example of why the oil industry is so keenly watching this treaty, is that we know that the world is moving from from internal combustion vehicles to electric vehicles. We know that there is a push to go from conventional sources of energy to renewable energy. With this shift from conventional sources of energy to other forms of energy, whether it is for vehicular movement or for industrial and other usages, the oil and gas industry has realized that their demand will fall, and therefore they're trying to move their operations away from oil to energy towards oil to materials. And the most important material, of course, that's comes out of oil or gas is petrochemicals. So with this shift from from conventional sources of energy that is happening globally, the oil and gas and coal companies, but largely the oil and gas companies, are trying to have their refineries integrated for producing petroleum and diesel as well as petrochemicals. For example, in India, 80% of our refineries are integrated refineries now. Or RRPCL, which is coming up in in Ratnagiri, is going to be, in fact, global single on integrated on-site refinery that is being planned. So there's a lot of vested interest and stake of the big oil companies to ensure that what they're going to lose out in the petroleum and diesel market, they need to recover from a petrochemical market. Now, with UNFCCC on the one hand and the Global Plastics Treaty on the other, they feel that their future is being kind of stifled and is being choked, and they won't be able to obviously sell their oil and gas and therefore make those profits that they have been making all these years. So that's the reason why they're so invested in this. The other group of people who are invested are the fast-moving consumer goods, the big FMCG companies like Unilever, Nestle, just giving examples, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all of whom sell their products in these sachets or plastic bottles, which are all single-use. And the narrative is that single-use plastic is actually the worst, is the most problematic form of plastic because it has really no value. It is, it's just use and throw. So it's obviously compounding the problem. So, but for FMCGs, if they have to again now do R&D and invest in some other materials, that's going to again affect their profit margin. So there are the other group of company who are interested in keeping the tap flowing and not closing the tap, which is what something that as observers we're asking for.
So not only for the people, not only for the planet, it's a life and death issue for these companies also. They want to keep their business running. They want their profits coming in, pouring in.
Yeah. So there are two kinds of lobbies. One is the industry lobby. The second are the countries who are oil producing and petrochemical producing countries. For example, India is a petrochemical producing country. We are in certain kinds of petrochemical, the fourth largest producer in the world. And we aspire to be a global hub, or at least a regional hub for production of petrochemicals. And you can see that the expansion that is going on of our own oil, even PSUs, is in that direction. So along this, so there is a collusion between the lobbyists, the industry lobbyists, and then these countries, which the oil and oil, gas, and petrochemical producing countries. So it's really for example, a lot of the West Asian countries, or the United States, or Russia, China, India, all these countries really are gaining a lot from this industry. So even they do not really want a very strong global plastics treaty. Having said that, if for example the lobbyists were not in the room, it would be more difficult, because if it was only the member countries, then there is a substantial number of countries. 63 countries, for example, are members of the High Ambition Coalition who want a strong plastics treaty, right? So if it was only between the member countries and it was not the industry lobbyists who were pushing the way they were, there is still a possibility of having some kind of a negotiation or a conversation.
Just a doubt, is India part of this high ambitions group?
No, India is not at all a part of the High Ambition Coalition. Not only is India not a part of High Ambition Coalition, the positions that India is taking in the Global Plastics Treaty is extremely sad to say it is regressive. These plenary discussions are all on YouTube, and anyone can see them, or even submissions that are made by all the member states, by observers. Everything is online, nothing is hidden, and that's actually good, because that transparency is very, very important. Now, when you look at those recordings, or you look at those submissions of India, you know that India is basically wanting this to be a waste management treaty, and not a treaty which actually ends plastic pollution, as the title says. And ending plastic pollution means ending polymer production. So reduction of production and consumption of plastics is what will lead to ending plastic pollution, not just consuming and producing and consuming more and more, and just finding, stopgap and band-aid arrangements to deal with the plastic that is there in the ecosystem. But India is therefore not only not a part of the High Ambition Coalition, but also is not showing, is showing low ambition, if you ask me, at the treaties.
So for many countries, their development is at stake, and they won't allow a plastic treaty which we would, or rather many of the people in the world would like to. So in the coming years also, even though global warming is crossing 2 degrees Celsius, even though plastic is flooding not only the market, but our lives, our soil, everywhere, we don't see a chance for at least controlling the production of plastics.
It is extremely bleak, and I think what you said about development, and that's exactly what all these oil producing companies are trying to push, and they're saying that for development we need plastics, but that's not true. We all know that we don't need plastics for development. We need industries which are mindful of the environment. We need development paradigms which are mindful of the climate, because even if you're going to earn a lot, for example, if there is petrochemical that grows in India, it is who's the biggest producer of petrochemicals today is the Reliance Industries Limited in India, where you have the Adani Group also entering the whole plastic bandwagon with the intention to set up the coal to PVC plant. So you will have the private enterprises really earning the big money, and who's getting the cancer, and who's getting the health impacts, and whose livelihood is affected. Because our oil is imported, right? And so it's all our petrochemical refineries are mostly on the coast, which is affecting fish population. It's affecting fish workers. The emissions are affecting standing crop of farmers who are in the vicinity. Now, when we're talking of development, they're only looking at what is the kind of income that is coming into the country. But what is not even in the hisab kitab, what is not even in the calculation for our government, is the expense that would be covered for health, the reparation for livelihood issues of the fish workers, of the farmers. None of that is even considered, right? And now only still talk of human beings. But if you want to regenerate a poisoned soil, of the farmers, what will that cost? If you want to clean up your coast, and I'm not talking of ocean cleanups, I'm saying all the oil that is stuck to the sands of the Dahej, of Manali, and we're seeing, for example, in Tamil Nadu, what's happening now, where the Chennai Petroleum Limited, the oil leak that has happened from there. Now, if you have to clean all that, what will be the expense that's incurred? Now, you're saying that it is good for us because you're not looking at the expenses that you would have incurred. So that this is a developmental issue is a problematic perspective and a problematic view. And if you ask the people, for example, when RRPCL, the people are struggling against RRPCL in Ratnagiri, against the petroleum and petrochemical refinery that's coming up, the government said, but we want development for you. And the people said, sure, we also want development. And they actually told the government what they wanted. So it's not just, I will protest, but they even said, if you want to put up factories here, which we will welcome, these are the ones we would like. So the people are themselves offering an alternative, but the government does not listen to that. So on the one hand, finally to say that on the one hand in India, the government says, oh, we've taken very stringent rules. We have single-use plastic bans and the plastic waste management rules. So this is one song they're singing over here. But when they're going into a global plastics treaty space, they're saying, according to the government of India, the primary plastic polymers, which is one of the 13 or odd, points to be negotiated, they don't want any negotiation on it. They don't want it to be in the purview of the treaty. Forget weak provisions or strong provisions. They don't want any provisions. So there is a double speak. There is a bit of a hypocrisy, going on where the government says we want to end plastic pollution and we are global leaders on SUP bans. But when it comes to, put your money where your mouth is, that the Indian government is not doing what it should be doing, which is being a high ambition, position that it should be taking in a global space and actually being a global leader. But they're not doing that.
So the struggle against the plastics, struggle against the thing which everybody accepts that it's not good, we are going to have a very, very long march. What do you think?
Yes, I mean, they said that we need that member states have to negotiate it within 5 negotiation sessions. 3 are over. Fourth one is due in April. So I really don't know how. I can't imagine that, when there's such polarized positions where they can't even agree, there's no consensus on even work for intersessional. Forget negotiating a text. They are not able to agree what they're going to discuss, what topics they will discuss in the intersessional period. So if we are in a place where 175 members are not able to agree on what they will discuss within 5 months, how will they discuss what, how will they finalize a treaty in in the next 2 sessions is something that, at least for me, is unimaginable, under something very very groundbreaking actually happens, where the secretariat intervenes in the intersessional period and the chair takes some very bold decisions and steps, which also given the past 3 INCs, we don't see, such boldness being displayed by them either.
Thank you, Swathi, for being with us. Thank you, viewers, for watching us. Goodbye till we meet again.
Thank you.